Hi, in this video we'll be talking about Python Boolean operators and, or, and not. And in particular, we'll have a look at what they exactly return. First, some basics. The AND operator returns true if both operands are true, and false otherwise. For example, true and true, true. True and false, false. 2 is greater than 5, and 3 equals 2 plus 1. False. This is false. This is true. So this is false and true. Or A in March, and the length of April is greater than 2. And this is true, because this is true and this is true. The OR operator returns true if either of the operands is true, and false otherwise. So for example, false or true. True, because it's enough that one operand is true. Or for example, 2 plus 3 is not equal to 6. Or the last element in hello is H. So this is true. 5 is not equal to 6. And this is false. The last element in hello is O. So the result is true because one of these operands is true. Or one more example, the first element in this list is equal to 0, which is false, or 2 is less than 1, which is false. So the result is false. The NOT operator returns true if the operand is false, and false if it's true. So, not true returns false. Not 2 plus 6 equals 8 is false, because this is true, so not true is false. Or the second element in this list is equal to C. Here's the second element. This is not C, so this is false, and not false is true. Boolean operators short-circuit execution as soon as the result is known. To see it in action, let's first see what happens if we try to divide by 0. So 3 divided by 0, we get an error. 0 division error, division by 0. And now we'll use division by 0 with Boolean operators to show that portions of code are not executed at all when not necessary. First, let's test the AND operator. So, 3 plus 3 equals 7, which is false. And 3 divided by 0. Enter false. As you can see, the second operand is not evaluated at all because the first one is false. And if the first operand is false, it doesn't matter whether the other is true or false. The result will be false anyway. Now what happens if we swap the operands? 3 divided by 0 and 3 plus 3 equals 7. Now we get an error because the first operator must be evaluated anyway. Now let's test the OR operator. For example, 2 is greater than 5, or 3 divided by 0. We get an error. If the first operand evaluates to false, which it does, the second must be evaluated too, because if the second operand happens to be true, the result will be true. So at this moment here, it's too early to say whether the whole expression will be true or false. And this is why the second operand must be evaluated. But if the first operand evaluates to true, then the other one doesn't have to be evaluated because the result is already known. So, for example, the length of car is 3, or 3 divided by 0. Here, the first operand evaluates to true. So it doesn't matter whether the second operand evaluates to true or to false. The result will be true anyway. So as we can see, this piece of code is not executed at all. Now, what do the AND and OR operators return? They always return an object. And it doesn't have to be true or false, which actually are 1 and 0 respectively. They will return the object evaluated on the left side of the operator or the object evaluated on the right side. Let's first have a look at the AND operator. The objects are evaluated from left to right. If the first one is true, the result is not yet known, and it depends on the other operand, so the other operand is returned. For example, 2 plus 3 and 7. Enter, and what we get is 7. Well, 2 plus 3 equals 5, which is not 0, so this is regarded as true, and if the first operand is regarded as true, the second operand is returned. Now, how about this? 6 and 0. Again, the first operand is true, so the second operand is returned. If the first operand evaluates to false, the result is already known, and the execution is short-circuited. The first operand is returned. By the way, all numeric zero numbers, all empty objects, and the object none are false. Any non-zero numbers and any non-empty objects are true. So, for example, an empty list and 4. An empty list is false, so the first element is false, and it is returned. Now, here we have an empty dictionary and 0. They are both false, but the first one is false, so it is returned. How about this? Max of -2, -1, and 0, and 3. Well, on the left we have 0, which is false. So this is returned. If there are more operands, the first one that evaluates to false is returned, or the last one if all evaluate to true. For example, 3 and 2 plus 2 and an empty list and 9 and 0. The first operand which evaluates to false is this one, the empty list, and this will be returned. Now let's have a look at the OR operator. The OR operator evaluates the operands from left to right and returns the first one which is true, or the last one if all are false. For example, 4 or 5. We get 4 because the first one, 4, evaluates to true. How about this? 4 or 0. We get 4 because, again, this operand is the first one which evaluates to true. How about this one? An empty tuple or 3 plus 5. We get 8 because this is the result of adding 3 and 5. This is the first operand which evaluates to true, and this is why it's returned. How about this? An empty list or 0. They both evaluate to false. So if all the operands evaluate to false, the last one is returned. And one more example, we can have more operands as well. None or 2 times 5 or an empty dictionary. The first one to evaluate to true is this one, and this is returned 10. The fact that the OR operator returns the first operand that evaluates to true can be used in assignments and conditional statements. Here's an example with an assignment where it can be used to set the value of a variable to a non-zero and non-empty value or a default value. So here we have our default value set to 10, and now we have A, B, C, D, E equal to 5, 0, 6, 9, and 0 respectively. Now we can assign to x. X equals A or default. And now we can use a semicolon to place another statement on the same line. Print x. We get 5 because A equals 5, and if the first operand is true, it is assigned. How about this? X equals B or default. Print x. We get 10. B is evaluated to false. It's 0. And so the second operand is assigned default, which is 10. How about this? X equals B or E or default. Print x. Now B equals 0, E equals 0, so B and E are evaluated to false, and this means that the last operand, default, should be returned. And so it is. And here's an example with conditional statements. The functions used in the code all return objects, and each object can be evaluated to true or false. So we have func A, which prints function A executed and returns true. We have func B, which prints function B executed and returns false. Now, if the first function returns false, the result is not yet known, so the other function must be called as well. Now, here we have a conditional statement with the two functions, B and A, and we're using the OR operator. Well, if the first function returns false, the result is not yet known, so the other function must be called as well. Let's run this code. Function B executed, function A executed, done. Okay, so function B was executed and function A was executed. Now let's change the order of these two functions. Now, if the first function returns true, which it does, the result is known already, and the second function isn't executed at all. Let's run this code. Function A executed, done. So as you can see, function B was not executed at all. The last example shows us how we can short-circuit execution so that the other function is not called. Okay, that's it for this video. If you like it, a thumbs up would be great. Also, make sure to subscribe for future videos. If you want to leave a comment or ask a question, you're welcome to do so. Thanks for watching.